Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We'd like to talk to you about a new way of thinking about your compliance management system and how you can leverage technology, some of which you're definitely already using, and some new tools to get you ahead of the compliance issues, streamline your spending, and enjoy quick and painless compliance exams in the future. So our presenters today will be Rob Ellis with Spillane Consulting Associates, and Keith Smith with Black Knight will be introducing you to a really helpful Black Knight tool after Rob speaks. Just to quickly introduce Spillane Consulting Associates. For the past 30 years, we've provided consulting services to the mortgage industry in the areas of QC, technology, secondary marketing, and staff development. Our goal is to establish long-lasting relationships with our clients and continue to help them strengthen their operations in an ever-changing market. So with that, I will pass it on to Mr. Rob Ellis to get us started.
Thank you, Sean, and good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending. And it's my pleasure to be presenting and talking about something near and dear to my heart today, compliance. And just a quick intro to my background. I've been in the banking industry for almost 30 years, about 29 plus. And I started off as a state bank examiner, a state regulatory agency, the Mass Division of Banks. And then I went to work for a very large bank in their lending department. From there, I went to work for the FDIC, Federal Bank Examiner. And then the past few years, I've been at smaller regional banks in the compliance officer department. So I do have a bit of experience. I've been around a long time, and although I do think I've got some knowledge, can always learn new things. And certainly the industry changes so much at light speed. GSE requirements, the regulatory requirements, processes, and technology, and certainly the way that the products and services get delivered to market has exponentially changed. And yet, what I think about is the compliance programs really haven't kept pace with the changes in the industry and how the products and services get delivered. So with that, really the goal of the presentation today is, as Sean mentioned, introduce a new way of thinking in the compliance world. It's specific to understanding where resources are spent in the compliance program and where the focus should get tilted towards. We're also going to show some ways technology can be used that maybe many people aren't aware of and or not utilizing to the full extent. And let's face it, all this ultimately is to reduce examiner scrutiny, and a strong CMS is imperative for a streamlined exam process. So I want to level set that I'm mainly using examples in the residential lending world for today's purposes, but this concept can be applied across the board to deposits and other areas of the compliance management system. And also, when we talk about CMS, it's mainly made up of two main components: board and senior management oversight and the consumer compliance program. And my focus today really is on the consumer compliance program, and that's made up of four things. There's policies and procedures, training, audit and monitoring, and complaint response program. So the new way of thinking I'm talking about is evaluating the compliance risks and leveraging technology into procedures. So first, let's look at a compliance program and how much resources are typically allocated in each area. And honestly, policies and procedures get very little attention. They get looked at once a year and might have been written 10 plus years ago, and very rarely get updated. And also, training is typically high level and is web-based modules, which certainly they take into account the regulation, but rarely is it impactful on how regulation applies to the specific products and services that, let's say, a processor or an underwriter is working with. But I don't want to get sidetracked on compliance training today and the effectiveness of allocating appropriate resources in that area. That's a subject for another day. So basically, on an annual basis, 75 to 80% of the compliance program resources, which that equals budgetary money, is spent on monitoring, which is a program weighted towards detection and not prevention. You're finding and fixing, not setting and preventing. And everything pretty much nowadays is electronic. and there's so much automation that is not being utilized. So where do you get started? Well, one way is during the annual compliance risk assessment process. Much more time should be spent in the area of procedures and identifying where technology is used to ensure compliance and document all those points. Now, of course, it's easier said than done because to be able to stop and take the time and doing a detailed evaluation is time consuming and costly, but it's worth the effort. It's imperative the compliance officer understands the systems and their programming and what the coding means. When you're trying to set a monitoring schedule and truly identify residual risk, not using technology is leaving risk on the table. And from my experience, compliance officers are typically, the methodology of the compliance management is less hands-on, which in my opinion is not the most effective or economically sound way to operate. So really I want to talk about my experience and why I've gotten to this opinion. In my background as a compliance officer, I wanted to understand and have access to all the systems and programs that the bank had to bring all its products to market. And this came from my experience as mostly a FDIC compliance examiner. As a compliance officer, I want to be involved in all the new releases and/or system maintenance upgrades, and I wanted to be part of when those things went into place. And like I said, as my experience as an examiner, there were three specific examples that I want to highlight that showed why I wanted to have access and have all this technology at my fingertips. So the first example was a situation in a bank where there was an opt-in, and this actually has to do with the Reg E, one-time ATM opt-in process. But in the exam process, you look at, in the pre-exam, you get policy procedures, you read them, you have an understanding how things are supposed to work. Then you have a management interview and you ask them, okay, how do they work? And then you go to the testing phase and you actually say, okay, I've read this, I've heard this, is it happening? So what happened in this particular instance was there was a system release, there was an upgrade. And what happened during this upgrade was it reset a number of these program codes back to default. And one of those codes was to automatically opt into people to the EFT overdraft fee, which was against the regulation. And how I found it was, once again, in that pre-exam process, I noticed a lot of complaints about people getting feed and they didn't want it, they didn't sign up for it. And my process was I went to the operations manager and asked them to show me the system, sat down next to them and asked questions about what's that code mean? What's that code mean? And certainly, as I was asking what that code means, it was revealed, oh, that's default to opt in. That shouldn't be that way. Well, that eventually turned out to be a pretty messy situation, but luckily it wasn't for a long time as it was backtracked to, like I said, that system release, and it was figured out pretty quickly what occurred. The second instance was a bank that was calculating HELOC interest a little differently. And I truly believe and feel that the bank wasn't even aware of this. They didn't even know the system was doing this. But basically, the HELOC interest was to divide the rate by 360, but apply it every single day in a simple interest method. Now, of course, Reg Z says you can do this, but when you do it, you have to disclose this. And the bank wasn't disclosing this. And of course, this was once again a process of asking questions. What does that code mean? Well, it's the default interest calculation method. So, and then the last point was a situation, and this actually is during the pandemic. And when the pandemic first hit, a lot of institutions sent out a lot of notices to their customers that during the pandemic, we're not going to report anyone delinquent to the credit reporting agencies until things get sorted out. And this was something that was recommended by the agencies as something to be as proactive and working with your customers to try and not let the pandemic impact them as much as possible from a financial standpoint. So the bank did this. It said it wasn't going to report delinquencies. However, if you're familiar with the systems and programming, a lot of times there's a lot of patches that get involved in a system that's servicing loans that have been closed many, many years ago. And these patches sometimes overwrite the standard code changes. So certain the bank coded that no more reporting 30, 60, 90 days delinquent. However, due to previous patches, that programming did not get written for all the entire portfolio, and they still were reporting some customers delinquent. So once again, a very big issue. Luckily, it was caught and not necessarily an exam issue, but it was caught. So my point is, the compliance officer should really know and understand the inner workings and coding of the systems in place. So they can ask the question, what's this code mean, and not an examiner. Another concept to introduce is how technology can not only be leveraged in procedural controls, but it can also do monitoring at the same time. LOS and POS systems now have the capability to have compliance rules embedded in the programming, and you can lock down a system to only operate in compliance and alert you to errors or exceptions prior to a loan closing and even before disclosures go out. So for example, today I got a couple things to go over. And one is in Encompass, there's a Maven compliance service. And I first want to qualify that SCA is vendor neutral company. We don't endorse one program or company over another. I'm just using this as a great example for a compliance control point. Now, of course, the Maven compliance service is not cheap. You do need a subscription for these things, and they do cost money. But let me just quote one thing. A penny spent on prevention avoids 2K in CMPs per violation and tens of thousands in the scrub and cleanup process. And this Maven compliance service is absolutely fantastic. It does a review automatically in the system for things such as ATRQM, Truth in Lending Review, TRID Disclosure Review, HOEPA State and Local High Cost Threshold Test, NMLS Registration Review, State Consumer Credit Law Review, LO Compensation, HMDR, GSE requirements. I think you get my point that this program is very powerful, very hectic, very helpful, and like I said, you set it and it makes sure that loans are only going to get originated in compliance. And stepping back to the compliance risk assessment process, identifying these things and seeing that all these control points are in place and you have all these preventative measures, you're going to spend a lot less money on the monitoring program and audit program. And that process should just be, this is, yes, we're doing these things because this is how we expect things to be done. And you really shouldn't be detecting things. So on the next slide, you can see a couple examples of what the screenshots look like. And I really don't want to spend too much time on the details because once again, we could spend hours just on these screens alone. But this is what the system looks like, and it gives you all the options to check off, review this, licensing requirements, HMDA, FHA, rate spread review. And like I said, I'm just giving a very scratch the surface of this because what you get out of this when there are fails is extremely valuable. So as you can see on the next slide, some of the results of, you can see the ATRQM, the things it reviews, the things it checks, and gives you these nice screens you can go in and look at. You know, what type of qualified mortgage is it? Does it review all these items? The fees test, the details of what's been disclosed, when, tolerances. And on the next screen, this is the actual first page of that Maven report that I'm talking about. Now in Encompass, when you get this, it gets run multiple times throughout the life of the origination portion of the loan. And this is just sort of the dashboard, the page one. But this particular report is 29 pages long. It's extremely detailed. It has all the parameters of what it looked at, the programming. And you can see all the different tests that it has. And it gives you that, like I said, that dashboard of these are the things that passed. And if it doesn't pass, it'll be highlighted in red and have a big fail in capital fail red letters underneath it. And just an example in the Maven report, the next screen shows what it's going through in the ATRQM, the type of different thresholds it's looking at. So you know exactly if there was a fail, what did fail, and you can go back into Encompass and look specifically at that area and correct that problem prior to the loan closing. So you know you definitely have a qualified mortgage originated. And on the next slide is a detailed report in the Maven report that shows the balancing of the fees. And it shows the fees that can change, fees that can't change, the 10% tolerance ones. And it really can pinpoint exactly which, well, I guess it goes back to when there's a fail, which fees cause that test to fail. And you go back in and make changes prior to the loan closing. And that way, once again, the classic quote of you're not giving away the store afterward when this is detected in a post-closing QC process, and you have to give back some money because you exceeded a threshold. All right. So, like I mentioned, this is really, really scratching the surface. There are many, 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 many more ways that you can leverage technology to make your compliance management system almost foolproof. And at the end of the day, you really should be focusing resources on prevention and detection because, to reiterate, having that strong CMS will streamline the examination and lessen any chance of criticism. So with that, that's pretty much the end of my presentation. And I'm going to hand off to Keith Smith, who is going to demonstrate and show you another piece of technology, which is a fantastic tool in an area that really there's not a lot of controls or monitoring available. So this is something that is very new, and I think is something that is an excellent, excellent tool to control not only compliance risk, but fair lending risk when you really think about it. So Keith, I hand the floor over to you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Rob. And that was very informative and perfect lead into how we can partner and help with this. So as we go through this, again, my name is Keith Smith. I'm with Black Knight, and I'm going to show you today an important aspect of your digital presence and how to compliantly and reduce the risk of your social media presence. So with this social media automation, I want you to think of a few things as we're going through this. Is who currently in your organization has the governance of it all? Is it in the compliance aspect? Is it operations, legal risk? Who really has control over that today? Also, do you have any policies in place currently for your organization? And are you currently updating those as new information comes out? Have you implemented any automation into your social media presence? Are you monitoring? Are you auditing for this? And then on top of that, are you currently remediating those issues that you have found? And are you training your loan officers and your team all in your organization? So a lot to think about, but some important key aspects as we go through this. How is social media and your digital presence being handled today in your organization? So something that we have to offer for you is a all-in-one opportunity to cover and make sure that your risk and compliance and marketing efforts are in one stronghold and be able to make sure that everything that you're doing on your digital presence is being monitored for compliance risk, and you have full availability and transparency into what is going on. We have an end-to-end system from auditing, which is looking back into the past, monitoring as a go forward, publishing needs, as well as review management and listing management. So as your digital presence continues to grow, and in today's industry, you have to have a digital presence. You used to be able to get away with the word of mouth, but now with everyone having marketing aspects and you can get it on any social media for free, it is important to differentiate yourself from your competitors. And with having an automated compliance process in place, we can use specific triggers, not only that you build out, but also from the federal level as well as state level. With this, as not only again the compliance aspect of it, we have a marketing piece that you'll be able to share all the knowledge that you have from your organization, be that subject matter expert, to your entire network and spread that not only to your network that you have within the organization, but also with all of your loan officers' organizational networks. And then with this, you have abundance of reporting on the back end to understand where you're having success, where there are some failures, where you need to train some more. So we're going to go into some more specifics as we go on through this presentation. First, I want to start off with audits. And one thing you have to think about is, are you truly auditing what your organization is posting that it's compliant? But not only the organization, the more important piece is the loan officer aspect. Your loan officers are out there continuously trying to build a book of business for you and bring new clientele in. Some of the ways that they may be presenting that information on their social media pages may not be compliant and might put you at risk. And just as Rob stated earlier, you want to be proactive in this aspect, because once it gets to the auditor's side and you're going through all of the long periods and operations with them, it comes into hefty fines. And if you can be proactive in making sure that you don't have to ever get to that point, because you have a process in place that you'll be able to see this on a constant basis. So what an audit is, it is a comprehensive 12-month look back on that entire loan officer's web presence. And we're not talking about solely on the LinkedIn's, the Facebooks that you usually have, or Instagram, anything along those lines. We're looking at blogs, third-party advertising. We're looking at any web presence that they may be found, any public page that they may be associated with or commented on. We're going on a deep dive to make sure that what they're posting out that represents you as a corporation is compliant in every way. With this audit, you're able to plan these out with an automated scheduler. You can set that you want to have 10% of your organization looked at on a constant basis, or if you want to have 10 LOs. And what we'll do is we'll run it randomly for you, so you never have to worry about that you're not getting a good grasp of what your organization is and where your organization is on the comprehensive auditing aspect and how they are compliance wise. On top of that, you'll be able to see which channels that your organization is struggling at or having a lot of success in, and continue to build on that. So you'll be able to see it in, again, if you're on your Facebook pages or in your LinkedIn business pages, wherever you're having your struggles or your successes, you'll be able to see that in the audit aspect. Then on top of all of it, you'll have these audits inside of our system, and you'll always have access to this. So I understand through compliance needs, you need to have it at least 5 years, and for some organizations, you need to have it for 7 years. You will always have access to these audits for that time period and beyond that, to make sure that you're staying compliant as an organization. With these audits, you're able to look into, again, not only federal regulations, but also the state level checks. And if an LO is licensed in multiple states, we scrutinize it to the utmost, and the one that upholds the most scrutiny and the most regulations that are needed. So you make sure that that LO is always covered by every state regulation and compliance need. And through this system, you'll be able to speak to your loan officer and the compliance team, not only through the system and a desktop application, but also in a mobile application. We've made it available for the loan officers to download this, to have this on their phone. So it is easy. They're usually on the move. So when they are, you can send them a task to complete after the audit has been completed to see, and they'll be able to do that simply on their phone, go into their social site and correct any type of issue that you may have. So we want to make it very nice and easy for you on all types of technology. Now jumping, we just spoke about audits, which was a look back into the past. Now let's look forward and continue to make sure that you're staying compliant post after post. So what we've done is partnered our audits with some monitoring. On the monitoring aspect of this, we scan all connected accounts hour on the hour, and we scan it for a built-in trigger word basis that we would work with you together to build this out, and also give you some best practices of what you would need to look for and be able to remediate those immediately. So not only are you being covered by looking into the past and making sure that nothing has ever been out of compliance back then, you're now looking at it and keeping your corporation compliant going forward and keeping it constant, that you don't run the risk of someone going astray, of not following all the policies and procedures that you've put in place. You're easily able to I apologize. You're easily able to go through in the system. What we do, we archive every single post on those connected accounts. So maybe today you're not looking for something specific, some specific language that you may have. But as we saw earlier in the year, there are some things that happen within our country that you may not want your LOs or anyone in the organization to speak to about on the social media business pages that you may have for them. So what you can simply do is search for specific terms inside of our system, because every post is archived, and then you'll be able to get those fixed as quickly just as if you had them in your trigger base. So we wanted to give you opportunity to not only monitor as they go, but also look back inside of all of the posts in a quick manner to make sure that you can have someone change something on the fly. So it's great having the ability to audit someone or monitor what's going on and the issues that may come up. But if you don't have a reporting tool embedded into that system itself will only do half the job for you. You can't be as proactive as you would like to. So what we've done, we've built in a robust reporting tool inside of it. And just to share a few, it'll show you your top 5 issues, regulation violations, and multiple other aspects of this. And why are we showing you this? Because we want you to be proactive in seeing where the issues lie. Nowadays, most of the issues by network are happening on LinkedIn or on Facebook. Nearly 50% of those issues are happening on there. And the most common issue that you see on there is a SAFE Act violation, which is as simple as someone not putting their full name that they have registered with NMLS, or if they simply leave out their NMLS ID or the company NMLS ID. That is an issue because it has to be part of their posts and on their pages. So with this, we're able to catch all of those issues and then show you where the issues lie. So you're able to go in, train your team, and make sure that those steps, those issues don't continue to become a trend, and you're proactive about it and making sure that everyone is on top of pieces on the go. And as I stated earlier, we have a free mobile application for your loan officers to use. This is for them. They can go and download this today and be able to explore and use this on themselves, for themselves, to expand and be able to post to all their social sites within a few clicks of their button. The beauty of the collaboration when an organization monitors and starts to audit their system on the compliance side is that you're able to share, your marketing team is able to share compliant information, and as well as create campaigns for them to enroll in. So throughout this, you would go through, create a campaign for them. They would be able to enroll it. And then once they enroll it into all of their accounts that they would like all of this information be posted, not only are you sharing this information now on your corporate sites, but you're also sharing this on the network for the loan officers. So you've spread this nice web for everyone to come in and see this great information that you've created and be able to send this out to all of the entire network. Again, you're able to have them run through tasks and ask for reviews within this mobile app. So it gives them a one-stop shop for them to be able to go through and connect with their entire database and everyone that they're working with to deliver and then also post to their social sites. The beauty of posting through this app is once you have your trigger term basis built out inside your system, so for what you're monitoring for, as they're creating posts, they're able to, if there any post that they create has a trigger term in it, they will get a yield. It will show them that this is going to create a compliance event, and if they continue to proceed, they will hear from the compliance team. And no one wants to have to stop what they're doing and hear from the compliance team to remediate something after the fact. So it gives them a nice yield before and edit it that is properly stated and there are no compliance issues. And from there, they're able to post everything out. And last but not least on here is the marketing aspect of this. We have a full-blown publisher for them. As I spoke about earlier, you're able to create all this content for your organization to use. You put in this compliant, you store all your compliant information in here. And not only can you use it on your corporate sites, but all of your loan officers will be able to use this to publish out to them. So you stop from having to continuously search and make sure that they're being compliant because they're receiving this information from you and you've already embedded this properly. So as you're going through your publishing, creating these campaigns, creating all this compliant information for your team, they have the ability to go in, post it with a few clicks, and it goes to all of their social sites. So again, you're casting this web and spreading all this knowledge to everyone across the board to be able to have access to this. And then again, without knowing how successful you're being, you don't know how you need to make your tweaks. So again, we built out more reporting to show you how your social media posts are performing on the different pages, the type of engagement you're receiving, so that you can truly have a good grasp of your social network and your digital brand and how it's being perceived out in the social realm. So we want to continue to build this out for you to be able to use and gain the knowledge to be proactive about how you present yourself. So with all of this, I want to go back to the questions that I had early on is who in your organization is taking care and who is running this currently and who is it governed by? Then do you have policies and procedures in place today? If not, that is something that can be built out and you can be helped with. From there, are you implementing them? Are you implementing automation to make sure that you're staying compliant with all of your needs and being able to have technology in place to save the manual aspect of this? Do you have audits and monitoring going on currently? And then are you able to remediate those issues and train your loan officers? It all goes back to being proactive in the organization and making sure that everything you have going on is to make a compliant and risk averse environment for everyone along that is associated with you. Ultimately, your name and your brand, you have to bring this out and be able to assess it and be able to build this in a digital world. And as the times continue to grow, especially during this COVID era, it's going to be more and more important. Now auditors are back out traveling, going through, making sure all of these aspects, because social media has become a hot place for marketing, and you have to make sure that you are taking care of the steps to keep yourself safe. And this is a great tool to be able to do this for you. So as you see, if you have any questions about implementing something along those lines, wanting a deeper dive, please contact me, and I would be happy to run you through all the innards of the system.
All right, thank you everyone for joining us. If you have any questions, please reach out to Spillane or Black Knight, and we're more than happy to help you with all your compliance needs. And a recording of this presentation will be emailed out. You can share it with your coworkers if you'd like. And thank you for joining us.